Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Pleasure to be joined here once again by Mr. Bryan Krahn. Bryan, thank you for being here, man.
Hey, man, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
What are the biggest differences between your training before 40 and now after 50?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, everyone always talks about, coming up on 40. It's this big milestone that we all have. And as someone who's been there and done that, it's, at least for me and for a lot of my friends and a lot of my clients, you're still a young man. You're still in your prime. I wasn't my strongest at 40. I was late 30s. I was at my strongest, but I got into my best shape, aesthetically, at I think 42 or 43. Everything's great. I mean, especially obviously if those years leading up to it, you've been doing your homework and taking care of yourself. You shouldn't skip a beat. Now 50 though, and I can say this with quite a bit of confidence, looking at my own client list and again, my friends and other guys, things tend to not fall apart, but you just notice things like you don't recover quite as fast. And that sounds kind of cliche, but it's more like an injury that would normally take 2 days to heal down will take 3, something, a pesky thing in your lower back that would be, okay, I'm not going to squat this week. Now it's like, I'm not squatting or deadlifting the next 2 weeks. It's just, everything slows down a bit. And at least for me, now this is more personal, you just kind of get a different perspective on training. I started just looking at things. Okay, well, how's this adding to my life? Like, obviously working out and being fit, like that, I benefit greatly from it. But right around when I turned 50, I was like, okay, is this helping me live longer? This meaning like training for hypertrophy or training for whatever I was doing at the time. Like, am I doing the things that will help me live longer? Like, am I doing my zone 2 cardio? Am I actually doing my mobility? Not just like 30 seconds before leg day. Like, am I actually doing it consistently? And for me, like the biggest one was, am I actually like practicing what I preach in terms of like sleep and recovery and trying to manage stress? And again, not just, actually getting proactive about managing stress, not just using it as a buzzword. I don't know, when I turned 50, all those things just kind of bubbled up in me. They became a lot more important. And I've noticed a return on it. And just, I guess the biggest lesson is you have to learn, or you better learn, is that you turn 50, you have to really start working with your body. You have to stop this nonsense like, oh, age is just a number. I'm going to fight aging with every step of the way. Like, that's bullshit. Like, at best you can do is just learn to kind of, roll with it, because you're going to get older. You're going to get older, fall apart, and die. Like, there's no getting around that. But how you live, like from 50 to 80 or 90 or beyond, how you live, your quality of life, that you do have a lot of control over. And I think the quicker we kind of embrace that, like before you turn 50, like the really smart guys and girls are the people who are in their 40s or even late 30s. They start, okay, I'm going to hold back a little bit. I'm going to start to work in these recovery modalities. I'm going to start, I'm going to push a little more selectively. Those are the people who are really going to flourish in their later years.
I'm sure you experienced this as well, because I did, and basically every other trainer I know did. But, when you're in your 20s and you start training people on the gym floor, most of your clients aren't fellow 20-year-olds. They're like, older people. And, I've had a number of clients in their 60s and above, and all of them unequivocally say every single time, I wish I did this when I was 30. I wish I started earlier, because I'm doing great now, but I will be doing so much better. And I know people that, are leaders in the companies that they work for. And one of the biggest things that they tell their junior staff is like, hey, you're in this professional services firm, or you're a lawyer, you're a whatever, like you have some disposable income now. Like, I know how much I'm paying you. I know how much you're making. Like, go hire a trainer, like get this under control, because when you get to my age, this person's 60 or whatever, they know that, hey, this is going to really matter. And the sooner you start, the better off you're going to be.
Oh, totally. And And the biggest thing is if you could cement those habits, like when you're younger, and just make them just as ingrained in you as it would be like getting up and brushing your teeth or whatever. Like if you can make it a huge, like a foundation of your life, that's so much easier than, again, when you got kids already, a busy job, and things are already starting to hurt. And now you're going to add this fitness thing into your life. Yeah, absolutely. But certainly if you start younger, with building muscle in particular, like, yeah, that capacity definitely, goes down as you age. But having said that though, if someone's pretty sedentary most of their life, and then in their 40s or whatever, they get into strength training, they can have those newbie gains. Mm-hmm. So in a way, I'm kind of envious of them, because it's like, man, you're getting stronger every workout, and you're putting on all this muscle, and here I am, I've got to kick and scream for every every gram that I put on. So there's a little benefit to that. Plus, their joints tend to be a little less, like we all know guys who are in their late 20s and their shoulders are cooked because they started at 16 and they're strong as hell. They've got they made progress really quickly, and now they're paying for it. So that is the one benefit of starting late, is you gotta have that newbie period you get to go through. But yeah, it's undeniable. If you have a good foundation when you're younger, it just pays huge dividends. Like you build a good base, and then a base of habits, a base of muscle. Then when you're a little bit older, it's more about, you can work on other qualities.
Another thing that I've noticed a little bit more recently, and this is almost certainly a cause of social media, but and it's curious when it's older people. This will make sense when I explain it in a second, but like when younger people say it, it's like, okay, you're just young and silly. But when older people say it, it's like, I wouldn't expect you to say that. Is when people start like absolutely majoring in the minors of little things. And to paint an example here, I had one guy came to me and said, like, I'm going to really want to start getting in shape. Like, I'm going to start doing some grounding. And I was like, dude, like nice. Like that's a nice thing to do. But like, man, you've got like 70 pounds to lose. Like you're 58 years old. Like, you gotta maybe go for a walk at least. Like we gotta do something than this. So what are some of those things that you think that like fill these big holes, kind of like move the big rocks, so to speak, that, hey, this is the thing you should start in, and that minor stuff, like, yeah, it's nice, but like that can wait.
Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned walking, because this can sound funny, but I have a newfound appreciation for just walking.
Are you going soft on us, Brian? Are you going soft on us?
Am I going? Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, bodybuilding, strength training, that'll always be my pride, what drives me. But it's always been what drives me. But it wasn't until I really kind of embraced walking and seeing it as something I do every day, even making it a priority over strength training, that I just got so much more of a benefit out of my lifting, especially now that I'm older, and because I'm busy. Well, we're all busy, but like I got a little kid, I got a wife, I got a business, and all this, and drama that everybody has. But I find this a daily walk, just that's what grounds me, and it just gives me focus to perform in my job, perform in the gym, be a good dad. It just that's when I sort my thoughts, and I don't listen to a podcast. I don't listen to the news. Definitely don't listen to the news or even music. I just kind of just be outside in nature and just get with my thoughts. And so if someone's got weight to lose and they don't know where to start, that would be where I'd start. Now, before, like a few years ago, I would have said strength training and diet, of course. But now for me, it's you start with walking and sleep. Start with that. Because when those things are dialed in, even though they don't burn, they're not really that impactful. Once those foundational habits are dialed in and you have a structure, because structure is everything, then you can work on adding, strength training, work on diet, of course, and just other lifestyle factors. Like I think walking is number one.
We're going to jump around here a little bit, but talk about, you just mentioned it very briefly there. Walking like burns calories because everything burns calories, but that's not why you do it. And the same goes for like other type of cardio training, be it be it sprints or like what someone would call zone 2 cardio. Can you just talk a little bit more about that and explaining how to wrap someone's head around, hey, you do this because it's healthy, not necessarily because it's burning calories?
Yeah. I mean, if you like look at steps or walking as this is, an exercise modality strictly, you're going about it wrong. It's much more, I personally use it for mental health, and obviously I get, calorie burn from it and movement benefits from it, but that's what I do it for. And that's so, I'm kind of rambling here, but I want to edit this one out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think people put too much emphasis, like on their training zones. And, I love Peter Attia. I love his content, but now everyone's like obsessed with, am I in zone 2 or am I dipping into zone 3 or am I on the cusp of zone 1? It's like, I'm not saying it doesn't really matter, but it doesn't matter that much. Especially when it comes to walking. Now, if you're training like higher energy systems, then it pays to be a little bit more kind of on top of it. But I call walking restorative work. I mean, it's active. Honestly, it's active meditation more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I totally agree with that. And I think that it's, my philosophy with it has always been that it's a positive thing that you're doing. Like most people come and like they need to lose weight, and that's a part of what they need to do. But that is maybe because I'm in podcasting and I pay attention to words that we use and stuff. But the words that we use, I think, are powerful. And so when we're talking about losing weight, like lose is a negative term. But adding walking, it's just a positive thing. It's like an action that you're doing instead of something that we're removing from our life. And I always find that has been just a powerful thing to do, because now we're starting to do something rather than what are we restricting from this person's life?
Well, what it is like in strength training, we often talk a lot about training economy. And it's like, for example, like a bench press, from a training economy perspective, it's pretty good because, you're training your pecs, you get your deltoids, you get your triceps. It's metabolically impactful. It's a big exercise. It's functional. Some might say it isn't, but you get a lot of bang for your buck. Now, walking, exact same way. Now, it doesn't burn a lot of calories, but the meditative quality of it, like again, I call it active meditation. And so basically it kind of kills a couple of birds with one stone. So if someone is walking consistently, especially outside, they just tend to have a better mood. And I've heard this from clients. I've experienced it myself. So it's very effective in that way. You get a lot out of it.
It's always seemed to me, and sleep as well, that these are two of the big things that have a lot of like trickle down effects. Yeah. It's like if you can start walking and getting some fresh air or doing something to help your sleep, which walking may in fact help you sleep, then it just helps you be better able to make better decisions the rest of the day. And so when you may have reached for a chocolate bar, maybe you won't because you're less stressed. And it's like you're not reaching for the chocolate bar because you're hungry. You're reaching for it as a way to just manage your stress. And so because we've done that through some walking, through all the benefits of walking, but also just having our sleep a little bit better, then you're better able to do that. And so you don't have that chocolate bar that's, minus 250 calories or whatever it is. And then that's the thing that can start kind of snowballing a lot of this progress.
Well, yeah. And it has that great placeholder effect. Like if you tell someone, okay, I want you to walk 45 minutes every day. Well, okay, probably the only time they can do that consistently is probably first thing in the morning. Okay. Well, now they got to get up earlier. Okay. So they got to get up earlier. Now, that means later in the day, they're going to be tired. So they're probably going to be going to bed earlier, and do that consistently. And also now you're reworking their whole lifestyle, and you start scheduling things a little bit different. Now they're scheduling their meals more consistently because they're getting up at the same time and they're tired at the same time. And everything kind of followed in this trickle down pattern. And it all started with that one placeholder activity. So that's another huge benefit of it.
Absolutely. With sleep then, so someone's going to start walking. We want to try to improve their sleep. I know that, just anecdotally through clients and through family members and whatever, a lot of older guys specifically struggle with sleep, waking up through the night, waking up super early and like not being able to fall back asleep. Is that something that you've struggled with? And if so, what are some of the things that you do as part of like a sleep routine, if you've got anything that you find particularly effective?
Well, a huge driver of that is also stress, especially someone who wakes up way too early and with their mind racing. They're just stressed. They're not getting through their things. They're taking their day with them to bed. And yeah, you can do a brain dump before bed and just write down all the things that are that are stressing you out. And there is some, or that you have to do, and there is some relief to that, so you don't have this to-do list going through your head. I was on to something.
Reducing stress, leaving your thoughts at the end of the day, waking up with your thoughts, your brain racing.
But the biggest thing is that is actually, they're waking up and their mind is racing. That's just a red flag that you have to look at your day and all the things you're trying to accomplish. And just maybe you have to delegate some things. Maybe you have to get some help, either doing things or get some mental health therapy. Like you're not functioning. You're over capacity in terms of stress. Like that's whenever clients reported that, or when I've experienced that, it's just when I'm just overwhelmed. There's just too many things to do. So that's when you have to start removing stuff from the plate, whatever you can.
Do you have any sort of like a nighttime routine that you follow?
Me personally, and what I try to go to bed pretty damn early because I get up early. So by 9 o'clock, I'm already, I've already got designs on, okay, I want to get to bed soon. So that's get my kid in his routine, because for whatever reason, he stays up later than me. That's a sore spot, but I'm working on that. But my routine is always, I try to stop eating about 2 hours before bed. I'm not a big screens guy in terms of a TV anyway. But like everybody, I'm always on my phone, but I do try to limit that, in the evening. And about an hour before bed, I take magnesium, either GABA or melatonin, kind of go through but magnesium's the big one, and that's an essential mineral, and it's just huge health benefits from that. But the biggest driver is I get up so early, so for me, falling asleep is pretty much a non-issue. And so it's that routine of every day getting up, even weekends included, getting up, in my case, probably too early, like 4 or 4:30, but even if you're getting up at 5 consistently every day, you're setting yourself up for a nice, normal, healthy bedtime.
Yeah, makes sense. And even from everything that I've understood is like, you should even do this on the weekends. Like keep the same time on the weekend rather than, I sleep until 9 on the weekends. Like that's kind of setting yourself up for mistakes.
Yeah, that is like if you, the more consistent you can be with sleep 7 days a week, the better. I know it used to be popular to say, just catch up with sleep on the weekends, but then you're kind of setting yourself up for the following week just being sleep deprived again. Like the more consistency you can have day in, day out, the better. Like the body just thrives in routine. That's it's a lesson that we can learn from athletes, and especially bodybuilders, because they're a good bodybuilder is the most boring person on the planet, because they get up at the same time, eat the same foods, go train the same, everything is consistent. Because they've learned that it's just that getting the body into a good, consistent groove where everything is automatic. It's almost like it's almost like you start digesting meals. Well, certainly you get hungry before the meal, which helps when you're trying to overfeed and build. And it's almost like your body predicts things when you get into such a good, consistent pattern. And honestly, the number one question I get is, well, what happens if I work shifts? And I'm like, well, that sucks. Like it does. But if there's anything, the body's also designed to adapt. So you're not going to die early. Well, hopefully not. You still have the potential to thrive, but it's not ideal.
Right. Yeah. I heard once some sleep doctor, he was talking about, someone asked him like, why can't we just catch up on sleep on the weekends? Like, why can we bank sleep? If I know that I'm not going to sleep tomorrow night, can I sleep a little extra tonight?
Oh, that's the worst.
And his answer was he said, he said, by all counts, the humans are the only animals stupid enough to sacrifice sleep. That's why we haven't developed that. We can store fat for in case of a famine, but we can't store sleep because why would you do that? Like this is a dumb thing to do. Now shift work and of course there's things in our modern life that happen, but but biologically, like there's no need. There's been never a need for this banking of sleep. You just sleep enough, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if you do work shifts, you can kind of mitigate the effects. Like you could use, having different lights, obviously, or blackout blinds, things like that. You can try to mimic conditions that as best you can. And certainly, sleep aids, although I wouldn't use a drug one or a prescription one because those do get very addictive, but you can try to in that way and also use training. But you're definitely at a disadvantage if you're working shifts.
Have you found any major impacts of training in the evening or training in the morning on sleep at all?
Quite honestly, that's one of those things where, again, the body very quickly adapts, and again, it thrives in a pattern. So if you put especially with training and getting your energy up for things, if you do something consistently, the body will just get used to it, and that's why you have morning trainees and you have evening trainees, and sometimes when they have to switch, they always complain, and then after a week or so, they're like, "Yeah, I'm used to it." So that's one of those things where there's just that that adaptation period. Now, do I think training, especially with higher intensities that involve a lot of nervous system output, do I think that's a good idea in the evening if you're planning on going to bed in 2 hours? Probably not, but I've done it. Especially if I've got up early that day. So that's one of those mechanisms where the body's pretty smart, and sleep is a priority. So it will find a way. But again, ideally you want to have that in the first half of the day, having a good intense training session, and have, if you want to do stuff in the evening, have it be more restorative work, lower intensity and stuff like that.
So for some people who be listening to this, they would think, it's important. They're hearing that it's important to have somewhat of a regular schedule. But if my regular schedule is that I only have time to go to the gym at, like 8:00 at night and only work out, what would you say to that person? Like they should still lift. They shouldn't not lift, but there's
absolutely
just a spot.
Yeah. Like even if they should, unless it is completely prohibitive to their lifestyle. Like they got a little kid, they're a single parent. I'm not saying, leave the little bugger at home and go lift, but yeah, like exercise is that important that I would, you want, there's always ideals, and it's one of the problems I think, especially today, is everyone wants optimal. Everyone wants optimal. And, some of us have like the luxury of kind of curating our lifestyle that we can have this optimal, I get up at this time and I wait 75 minutes and then I eat this and then I wait another 68 minutes and then I train. And that is possible for some people. But it's not necessary. The difference that it makes is more psychological than anything for most of these things. And I think it's a disservice because the average person will look at it and go, "Oh, what the frick, man? I got a job and I got kids and I got this. I don't have time to, finagle with my life to build it around my hobbies like this." And let's be honest, for most of us, training is a hobby. So as long as you get it done, as long as you get at least 6 to 7 good quality hours of sleep, as long as you lift at least 3 times a week, as long as you're getting this, 7,000 steps a day on average, doesn't even have to be every day. Just getting these base markers, that's the important shit. And then from there, if you're doing that consistently, maybe then you have a capacity to optimize a little bit. But until you're consistent, any talk about what's optimal is just, like I always say, the optimal is consistency is what's optimal. Whatever makes you consistent, that's your optimal.
Yeah, well said. I think there's way too much discussion about this, and the concept that there is a universal optimal is ludicrous. Like, not everyone's life is different, so there's no way there's going to be one single thing that's like optimal for everyone. And like, if I may, the other thing I always think that's hilarious about the people that are like hardcore in this like optimal for hypertrophy thing is like, Well, what's also optimal for hypertrophy is like blasting as many steroids as your body can handle. And like they're not talking about like that's going to make way more of a difference for your hypertrophy than changing the angle of your lat pull down. And it's like, well, what are we talking about here then, right?
Well, yeah, or even just your force of will has way more of an impact. I mean, granted, he's the furthest thing from natural, but there's that viral clip of Ronnie Coleman describing his typical day when he was competing. And it's like, well, I get up at 12, walk on the treadmill, and then have my free, like, it's just like, he gets up at 12 midnight, and like it walks on the treadmill, has a meal, goes to the gym, goes to work, as he like, and again, yeah, it's a very enhanced, very gifted bodybuilder, but it's just like, he wanted it that bad. Like he built his life, like kind of around this. So there's optimal. And then there's what are you willing to do just to hit the targets? That's what's important.
Speaking of the targets, and I think this is a question that comes up as well, is some probably older guys as well would be like, hey, I don't want to be jacked. I don't need to like be a bodybuilder. I just want to be healthy. Shouldn't I just be doing more functional movements than like bench pressing? What do you say to
that? Muscle is functional. Even big muscles are functional, but especially strong muscles are very functional. Strength is foundational to life. And strength is our most important thing, especially as you get older. Like certainly when you're over 50, strength training is highly functional. Even like bodybuilding specific training, like, cause that tissue, like that's not only is that you're like your metabolic engine, like that's what, and God forbid you get stuck in the hospital for whatever reason, like that, as soon as you're bedridden, that tissue flies off of you. So if you're going in and you're carrying a lot of muscle mass and then you have some kind of setback and you're in a hospital bed, you got this buffer that, even if you're losing tissue, and you can lose a lot of tissue, then you'll be okay. But if you're under muscled and you're weak, then and get stuck in for a long hospital stay, that's, especially if you're older, that's not good. And there's only, you can bounce back from almost everything, but as you get older, you don't quite bounce back. The risks get higher and higher and higher. So, I like the most functional training for someone over 50 is strength training.
Yeah, agreed. I think there's even a misconception with you will bounce back, but you'll bounce back faster and better if you're just stronger and more prepared ahead. Like nothing, God forbid, knock on wood, you walk outside and like hit by a bus. Like, your chances of survival and of getting better after are going to be much higher if you are just like stronger and more athletic than if you weren't. And so if you're out there doing a bunch of, functional stuff, which we just know, like objectively, it's just not building muscle and it's skill acquisition more than it is like training. It's just not going to help you.
Yeah. Like as you get older, men, women alike, your number one goal, at least in the gym, should be how do I get stronger? How do I get stronger? And as a very clear offshoot of that, how do I get bigger muscles? Because that is what's going to keep you metabolically healthy, and you have this capacity, this resilience to, frankly, to survive. And I always kind of, I'm a little squeamish when I see guys in their 50s saying, "Oh, this is how you get abs at 50. This is how you get abs at 50." And I think that's the wrong message. Like someone who's over 50, you should be worried about being strong and lean and healthy. And if you are those things, especially if you have a good amount of muscle, the abs will probably be there. And maybe you have to focus on them for a month or so. But if someone is under muscled and they're unhealthy and they're weak, but now they decide, and they got, they're skinny fat basically. And now they decide, I really want to get abs, and they're over 50. Like that to me is that is a recipe for disappointment and possibly hospitalization, because you're going to starve off whatever little bit of muscle you have for these abs that freaking aren't even there because you've never trained. When what you should be doing is getting strong, getting healthy, getting fit, doing that for years. And then all of a sudden you'll have these abs that you, as a side effect of a healthy fitness process. So.
it's like the difference between like if you set out from quote unquote a beginner to get abs. It's like there's a few steps you got to go through before that. But if you just set out to be strong and fit and like relatively lean, to get abs at that point is just like some relatively minor, although difficult, but like minor tweaks to your diet, and like they'll just be there rather than starting with that in mind. Like you've got so much else to build before you can get there.
Oh yeah, and it's also psychologically, that's a real rabbit hole. Like I get it. Bodybuilding is different. Now I'm always speaking outside of a bodybuilding context because you can have someone who's an experienced bodybuilder and they're like, okay, I want to bring up my abs. And that's a different discussion because that's someone who has a ton of muscle and they're probably pretty fit and all that jazz. But I mean, for like an average person, if they're just hyper focused on that, it's a psychological rabbit hole where they end up chasing a lot of deprivation in terms of either diet or deprivation style of exercise and punishment style of exercise. And delaying gratification is cool. And seeing how hungry you can get is cool for a while, but that should not be the centerpiece of your fitness pursuits. Again, if you're a bodybuilder and you're spending most of the year eating to grow anyway, and these, so then that kind of focus can fit into your overall year. But again, just as an average person, they should be focusing on get strong, get healthy, get lean. And then those other fitness, those little side hustles, you can do those then, but it should not be your primary goal.
So most people are going to come in and now have an understanding that they should be getting stronger. But there's also a component where people want to, for aesthetic and shall we say like surface level reasons, that they want to get leaner. But there's also a huge health component to getting leaner. So how can we go about then like kind of killing two birds with one stone, where we want to focus in the gym on getting stronger, but also get leaner, not to the point of necessarily like shredded abs, but get leaner for health?
Yeah, we're lucky in that a lot of the really important goals in this industry, they all play nice together. There's only a handful of contexts where goals can compete or kind of fight against each other. And the classic example is like the guy who's 50 pounds overweight, but man, he wants bigger arms. And you're like, well, okay, those don't play nice together. Okay. We basically have to pick one or the other. And definitely trying to get big arms when you have all this fat to lose is not healthy. It's not wise. We should get you lean, get the body fat off, still strength train, because we can still build muscle, but then focus on adding tissue when you get rid of this fat tissue. But that's a kind of specific context. Like for most people want to get stronger. They want to get leaner. They want to get more aerobically fit. Again, these are all things that you can do at the same time. That's what I mean by playing nice together. So you can build your program, fit it into your lifestyle. So you're doing these handful of things and they all take you to that one common goal. So
how would you prioritize then strength training, cardio? How do you fit this into a schedule? Say like someone has like 4 days a week that they can train. How would you schedule out their training?
Well, this is where as a coach I do things a little bit differently. I'm a big believer in I try to weave everything into a lifestyle. And rather than say, here's your program, here's your 4 days or 5 days or whatever program, the first thing I do is, with a client at least, is I figure out what's their work schedule like. Do they have kids? Are they like at that sport age, where kids are super busy? What's their work commute like? And obviously, what's their gym time like? And are they training at home? Are they training all these things that all factor in. And then from there, you take whatever time is available and basically build the program around that and optimize. I always optimize for consistency. So like if a fantastic training program that I know works, if I got to modify it so it fits this person's schedule and they can be more consistent with it, then I've made that program better for that person, because consistency drives everything. So I guess to answer your question, it really depends. Like you have to take the person's context, what they give you, and then weave the fitness, weave the walking, weave the meal timing into that.
Makes sense. I mean, there's
Yeah.
never going to be a universal answer, right? It's always going to depend.
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone wants a universal answer, and really they own this. Like everything can work. So let your lifestyle kind of dictate. If you only have 3 days a week to train, I mean, then that's fine. You can make amazing progress on that. Amazing. Especially if you're ticking all the boxes in the training session, and your diet is good and your sleep is good, you can make fantastic progress. Like much better than moving heaven and earth to fit in this 4th training session, and it causes friction in your work life and your personal life. Because over time you're just going to resent it. And I've seen this before. People just get burnt out of exercise programs simply because they're too demanding on their life. Not so much demanding on their body, but too demanding on their schedule or on their family life or on work, or there's too much to think about. Like all these, you really have to just hit these basic targets. And that's the biggest thing.
Something I've realized a little bit over the past couple months is sometimes people end up getting better results with their training program when they're going through a period of life where they have less time to train. They're like, hey, I can only get into the gym. I can only be in there for like 30 or 40 minutes, and only a couple days a week instead of 5 or 6 days a week. And so we changed the training program, but their upper body day is like bench press, pull-ups, dips. Like that's it. Yeah. And so it's like they take out all this junk stuff and all of a sudden they start making better gains. And so, to the point of like just trying to be efficient with what's going to be consistent and what's actually going to move the needle on your progress. Sometimes having too much time to think and do stuff is actually the thing that's preventing you from making the progress that you're looking for.
Yeah. Like the last thing people need, like I always get a little bit, when I have a new client, they're like, oh, I have as much time as I need, as much to train. I have unlimited time. I'm like, okay, well, if you have unlimited time to train, you're probably farting around then, so, and that just doesn't build muscle. Like the length of the workout doesn't build muscle. How much you do doesn't build muscle. It's the progression, it's a little bit of work progressed weekly, basic movements, basic movement patterns. Like that's what drives things. And yeah, if you force somebody, it's I believe is that not the Pareto principle? It's like, the 80-20 rule.
Yes,
when you force people, to kind of abide by that, by a strict schedule, they almost always, especially if they're coming off of having all the time in the world, if you force them to be more constrained, they always make progress.
How do you then? Sorry, finish your thought.
Oh no, and usually it's just by virtue of cutting away filler. You don't need a 20-minute warm up. You need a 3-minute warm up and then a few extra warm up sets. That's all you need. You don't need 4 exercises for bicep. You need 1 exercise for bicep, but you go harder than you did last time. You go for another rep. When you reach your target rep range, when you exceed it, you add the weight, double progression. Like you need these basic things that have been around for 100 years, but that's what drives progress. And sometimes you have to just take away all other options for people and leave them just with that for them to actually start to grow and improve.
Do you think very differently, or do you program very differently for guys who are over 50 versus like younger guys?
Oh, yeah, considerably. The biggest thing is, it's interesting when you get older, it's what's in your blind spot will often be what takes you out. And like when you're younger, like every guys just want to pump iron. That's what they want to do, and then maybe you can convince them to do a little bit of cardio. Maybe you can get them doing a little bit of mobility, but they just want to get big, depending, not all guys, but you know what I mean? But when you get older, like those things that you've neglected in the periphery, like those are the things that come back to haunt you. All of a sudden, those joint restrictions that you never treated, like all of a sudden now you can't, like also now it's like, it's this debilitating injury that you can't press overhead, or you can't press at all. Or it's just, you blow your lower back out because you've never been, strengthening your posterior chain, probably just been a squat guy or whatever. I mean, all these things that you've left in your blind spot, those will be the things that invariably take you out. You never do cardio because you're always getting big and jacked. you're going to have a heart attack when you're older. It's not funny, but there's a bitter irony to things. Like, so in other words, when I get old, when someone is a little bit older and I'm working with them, I always look at, okay, what are they doing? And if they've been training their whole life, they've been pumping a lot of iron, so I'm like, okay, what haven't you been doing? And it's cardio, or it's just overall movement, or it's mobility work, and you have to bring attention to those things, because that's always where, the source of their undoing is going to be. So yeah, with older folks, I like to not, still give a heavy dose of strength training, but just make sure I'm covering all the bases, like doing all these little things, like getting in the steps, getting a little bit of movement work, getting in a little bit of, how can I fit in power work? Even if it's a little bit of like body weight plyos and just multiplanar work. That's huge. Get them moving, outside of just the sagittal plane. It's just stuff like that. Just these little things that, frankly, that they often ignore when they're younger. But now you can still ignore it, but you're going to pay for it.
Just because those terms might go over some people's heads, can you just define the sagittal plane and multiplanar work and what that means and what that looks like?
Well, there's I knew you were going to ask me this. Sagittal plane, the frontal plane. I might want to edit this out. Sagittal plane, frontal plane. Fucking, what is the other one? Sagittal?
Transverse.
Transverse, yes. But I always mix them up. It's moving to the side. Edit the shit out of this, but it's up and down, moving to the side, moving laterally. I always everyone. Strength training is all in the frontal plane and the sagittal plane. I think it's the transverse plane, like doing like a Cossack squat, stuff like that. Shit that I never do. That's but that's the stuff that I honestly do address that with people. I explain it better than I did there.
It's like this is where like the function kind of aspect of and function used the way that it's used online, not like actual function. Kind of comes into play. It's like doing a lateral squat or a Cossack squat of some sort, or some type of lateral movements or rotational movements are also useful rather than doing like just bicep curls or just squats or just bench presses, which are all just things that move in a straight line, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is it's a good way to put it. That's actually legit functional training, is moving moving 3 dimensions essentially, and just keeping a little bit of jump training is huge. It doesn't have to be box jumps or depth jumps, and even just little hops to start with. Like just keeping a little bit of controlled athleticism makes a big difference, and it doesn't take much. Like a couple minutes is part of a warm up. One of the best things that's kind of come out of strength training lately is, or at least the last 10 years, has been people pushing a sled.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's great. I mean, just getting out of the big box, just these basic moves, these very kind of controlled exercises, which are great for building muscle, absolutely. But you need a little bit more legit kind of functional work.
Yeah, as far as function goes, and the things that'll actually do you in, like we know that for maybe not 50-year-olds, but like older people, like falls are a significant concern. Like when you're slipping, we're both Canadian, you slip on ice and you fall in the winter. Like that's a problem. And you break a hip and then you end up in the hospital, you have no muscle, you wither away. And then it's like, how do you die of a broken hip? That doesn't kill you, but all these other things can lead to, your end. And so having that ability to, one, like move quickly, and two, generate some force to be able to catch yourself in a fall or in some sort of, catastrophic event. It seems like a strong word, but catastrophic event is something that could quite literally save your life when you're 80 or 90 years old.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that's a really good, you brought that up. And I've always felt that everyone should, if possible, I know there's so many things we should be doing. We should be strength training. We should be walking. We should be this. Martial arts training is so good for that. Like it teaches you how to fall. That's like one of the first things that typically a good class will have you do is just teach you how to fall and obviously and get back up. More important than the striking even is and the combat is just like that skill is essential. But yeah, I mean it's that's I don't have much to add there, but
so having people work through all of these things, like it's
Yeah.
you just said it, that it's kind of a lot. There's a lot of things to do, but even just in their workout alone, it's like we talked about, mobility, cardio, strength training, hypertrophy training.
Mm-hmm.
How can we do all this in, I've got 45 minutes 3 times a week. Like, how do we schedule this? How do we get all this in?
Well, you don't. Yeah, that's the biggest thing is you don't. At least not all at once. You got to, what they call periodize it, and that's a word from exercise science. And what I like to do with clients is I call it seasonal periodization, and all that really means is you have all these activities, and you start obviously with a needs analysis, like what do they absolutely need to be doing, and that's rain or shine, that's number one, but after that, you have these, maybe they need more zone 2 kind of outdoor cardio. Well, if they live like where we live, that's best in the summer. So maybe you build their program around, well, in the summer months, they're doing more zone 2 cardio work outside and maybe less strength training inside. And then in the winter months, you flip it around. They do more strength training and they do more, intervals on a treadmill, and they do more. Maybe that's when they take a martial arts class. So that's the thing. So in the totality of the year, they're covering all their bases. And the nice thing is there's so much overlap. It's not like when you stop training this quality that it immediately drops off a cliff. Sometimes with strength training, we kind of get, if that's all you do, you kind of think that the body always operates like that. Cause you skip a couple workouts and all of a sudden you lose some strength, and it's kind of unnerving. Like the body's not really like that. Like develop these qualities. They take quite a while to degrade. And so you don't have to do everything all at once. You just have these, it's all in the planning.
Yeah, you work with your actual life, because like you referenced it a couple times, but the person who's listening to this is not a bodybuilder. You're not sacrificing the rest of your life to try and be like as fit and jacked and whatever as possible. Like you have you have a wife or husband and kids and a job and like a family and things that are happening in your life. And by the way, also you have to be like healthy and fit, because that's also part of your life. But you can't be sacrificing everything for your life. So this is why when working with someone, is they're able to kind of see through the things that you're not able to see through, and say, hey, this is what you need. Focus your attention on this. Focus your efforts on this. Like this is going to move move this rock, and it's going to let a lot of other things tumble, and that's what's going to like actually help. And then we can work on those other things later, and it'll all kind of come back together.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it sounds cliche, but fitness has to add to your life. It has to enhance your life. And everyone always says that, and that's why it sounds cliche, but it's often people will say that, and then they will turn around and they'll be like, well, I have to do this amount of cardio, and I have to train like this, and I will reschedule my entire life so I make sure I can, train my legs at this place, or I can do this workout on this day, and yada, yada. And that's just the wrong approach. And you kind of need that attitude. If you're a hardcore bodybuilder, you're competitive, you kind of need that kind of that myopia. But if you're just an average person, it's little concessions that you can make to make things fit seamlessly into your life goes such a long way. And so the less kind of internal friction that you have between your training life and your personal life and your work life, the more things can all be kind of rowing in the same direction, like the better off you're going to be. Even if it means sacrificing some, perfect example is if you have a gym really close to your house or office, and it's not great, maybe the dumbbells only go to 80 pounds or whatever or something, but it's a quick commute, man, and you're in and out, and you can get there consistently, or you can run in there on your lunch break, then that's a win. Maybe you keep that hardcore big box gym that's an hour and a half away. Maybe you go there on the weekend. You go in there and you squat your 500 pounds, whatever. But like, it's just, you have to take these, if you can mesh things into your personal life, so there's just a nice flow of consistency and low stress. Like training is stress, but it's supposed to be a good stress. It shouldn't be a stressor. And when I say training, that includes like everything that's involved with it, whether it's, the drive there and the drive home, and just, whether you're constantly thinking about training. Like people think about their workouts way too much. And they think about their diets even more so, way too much. You just kind of just like set it and forget it. And in the case of training, you just worry about progressing it. And in the case of diet, just worry about sticking to it and just stop fucking thinking about it.
Are there any major considerations or dietary things that you've changed like over 50?
Yes, actually, that's a good question. I've always noticed, you read all the time that protein needs increase as you get older. Protein needs increase as you get older. And I always kind of heard that and kind of raised an eyebrow because it just didn't seem to make sense to me. But then I realized the populations, they're talking about the average person. Someone like, us who obviously we're already protein beings, we probably don't need more as we get older. And so I still eat at least 1 gram per pound, but over the, since about 45, I've really cut back on the amount of fat I eat and a little bit probably reduced my protein, probably by about 20%, 25%, and just replace that with carbs. And very beneficial, very beneficial. So, which leads me to think I probably should be eating higher carbs, lower fat, a little bit lower protein the whole time. So probably nothing magical happened at 50, but I just came to the realization then.
Why do you think that is? Like, how did you even like arrive at that conclusion for yourself? And like, what do you feel that's different about being like relatively lower fat?
Well, the thing that kind of drove it was my palate did change in my 40s. Like I've always been a meat guy, especially a red meat guy. But then after a while, I was just like, I found like I'd go for barbecue, and before I'd used to just hammer myself, tons of meat. Now I'd find that I'd eat a little bit, and then I'd be okay. All of a sudden, I'm full. So okay, and I'm pretty, I know my body. I'm pretty intuitive. Like okay, that's not the same. So just over time, I just gradually reduced the amount of meat I eat. Now I'm not a vegetarian. I still eat meat every day, but I'm not eating meat. Now I might eat red meat once or twice a week, as opposed to once or twice a day. Mm-hmm. And just a lot more natural starches, like a lot of rice, potato, lots of fruits. And I just find, and my litmus test with everything, and again, this is just me, but also with my clients is, am I digesting it? Like, do I feel good or do I feel heavy? And obviously my body composition. But whereas before I would always kind of focus on body composition, now I'm like, now it's more the other way around. I focus on digestion, how I feel, my energy levels, and then look at the body composition, and they tend to correlate.
Yeah. Again, it always kind of like, sometimes with these conversations, it's like, I really wish that there was a secret answer, although I know that there isn't. And so like, I ask you that question and like, I know what you're going to say, but like there's 1% of me that's hoping that's like, maybe Brian's got a secret for like an over 50 diet thing. It's like, fuck, it's just the same shit always, forever, for the rest of our life.
Well, I do think we need less okay. I'm probably gonna get flamed for saying I do think we need a lot less fat than, especially in our little community, than we've driven ourselves to think. Like we're always like, oh, you need fat to make the hormones. You need fat to make hormones. Well, if you might be on hormone replacement, then that's kind of a non-issue. But just simply, you just don't. You need a little. Yes, you need a little bit of fat, and you certainly don't want to go on a zero fat diet. But we don't need, especially even in our little community, man, we don't need nearly as much dietary fat as we're kind of led to believe. Especially if we're doing all this training. I mean, just think about it. Like, we need carbs. That's what we need. Now, if you're utterly sedentary, maybe a different story. But even then, how much fat do you really need? Maybe 25, 30% of calories max. So like me right now, I have maybe 20 or 30 grams a day, and I don't know, I'm still alive.
Yeah, that's pretty low for sure. But I mean, but it works for you, right? And I mean, even for the people who are not like us in our little fitness circle, who are paying less attention, who are at higher levels of body fat, who are maybe a couple years behind in their fitness journey. It's like you need to pay attention to these things more, because fat is very often the thing that can run away, right? Just so calorie dense that like, oh, you're eating 112 grams of fat a day. Like, no wonder you're 70 pounds overweight.
Yeah, and so I'm clear though. I've always I've learned to be a lot more intuitive to my food choices too, because obviously we get cravings for things that we know we shouldn't be eating. We get cravings, especially comfort foods, and they're often the worst foods of all. So setting that aside, setting those obvious like things that mess with our head that we're kind of, then there's all our other food choices. And I've learned to just like, what am I really like? What foods make me feel good? Like what foods do I never associate with feeling crappy or feeling sluggish or just always seem to do me right. Like I've learned to be like, just look over my eating history over the last 50 years and I build my diet around those foods. And so I guess it's very much kind of like Stan Efferding's vertical diet, just having a handful of foods that work for you. And for me it was, lean proteins, rice, potato, fruits, a little bit of veggies, but I'm not forcing veggies like I used to. Just kind of letting my palate drive me in directions. And I find that's allowed me to not have to be quite so anal with my portions. It's a little bit more self-limiting. And it's when I deviate from that and I start, eating foods that I'm not so crazy about, or of course eating junk food, then all the signals are off. But we kind of restrict your palate to just these foods that work for you. You also, they become a lot more self-limiting, self-governing. And I just, so that's how I try to listen to my body, at least.
Yeah, it comes back full circle in a way to a common theme throughout this whole discussion is like kind of developing a routine and do some trial and error to define like a routine that works for you, and then try to stick to that as best as you can with your sleep, with your food, with your training, and you just stick to that and try not to deviate from it, because part of it is also like decision fatigue. I'm sure if you're trying to eat something new every single day and try a new workout every single day and a new this every single day, it's like, you've got a business, you've got kids, there's things going on in your life. Like how many decisions are you going to make? Eventually you're going to make some wrong ones. If you can limit the number of decisions you make, you're probably going to do yourself some good and be less stressed.
Oh yeah. And that's exactly. And the more you can minimize that kind of stress in your life, like stress management is so cliche, and because we all have stress, man. But it's this extra, frankly, bullshit stress that you just take on for no reason. If you can get rid of that noise, it makes life so much. So then you can just focus on the main stressors. Life's just a lot more manageable.
Yeah.
And like variety in a diet is grossly overrated, in my opinion. Even variety in training is grossly overrated. Just got to find what works for you, stick with it, progress it. Yeah. That's where the magic is.
Very much agreed. As we start to sort of wrap this up, I think a discussion about mainly fitness for guys over 50 would be remiss if we didn't discuss TRT. Why can't we just all take TRT and solve all the problems of the world?
You get TRT, I get TRT, you get TRT. It's like Oprah. TRT is wonderful if you need it. Like that's the thing, and it's amazing how everything goes in cycles. And like I've been doing this a long time. Back in the day, this is a taboo subject, and then about 10 years ago, like right when The Rock was anyway. Then TRT became talked about a lot more, and now it's like and now it's completely out in the open, and to a degree that people say, I take TRT, when what they're really doing is they're taking a full on steroid cycle and calling it TRT. But replacing if you're symptomatic, if you're over 40 and you are symptomatic for low testosterone, and I don't care what your blood work says, if you're symptomatic for low testosterone, then you should go about the lifestyle changes that might elevate your testosterone, regardless what your blood work says. You should focus on your sleep. You should maybe look at your dietary fat and include, is it way too low? Bring it up a bit, bring up your protein, have enough carbs, in other words, have enough calories. But sleep is the biggie. Is your training volume too high? Are you getting sunlight? Like, is your stress like off the charts? Like, can you manage it somehow? Can you bring more structure into your life? Are you walking and doing it, meditatively, or are you like filling your ears with like a shitty podcast? Like if you're doing all those things to like lower stress and kind of just basically create your internal anabolism, that will help. And if you do that for 3 months and you're still symptomatic for TRT, and the symptoms that I look for, I'm not a physician, but with a client, the symptoms that I look for isn't so much are they making gains, because testosterone and strength training within the natural limits, like that's not going to make a huge difference. But like I look for like your mood, your focus. Can you keep a thought? Can you make a decision? Is life kind of black and white? Or is it what it used to be like in vibrant color? Or like it used to be really excited about things. The biggest one is your wife saying you need to go on an antidepressant. Like if those things are still symptoms, even after going on this 3 months of really good lifestyle intervention, then you'd be crazy not to try TRT. And again, I don't care what your labs, because the labs say, because everybody, well, not everybody, but most people have low normal testosterone, according natural people, when they get their labs done. It's usually normal or low normal. And that's why they keep lowering the standards for normal. So it's not about numbers. It's about symptoms. So again, if you went through that whole process I described, then I think you'd be crazy not to do it, because I can't say but the only guys I know who have been disappointed by TRT are the guys who are thinking it's going to get them jacked. It's not. Yeah, it'll help, obviously, but what it will really help with is it will wake you up and make you excited about training. And that's what's going to get you jacked. It's going to get you excited about life. And that's what's going to save your marriage. It's going to allow you to make a decision and be decisive and like actually attack your goals in life. And like, that's what's going to bring the color back to your life. So I have very strong opinions on it. I think it's not a perfect drug, but if you need it, it will save your life.
Yeah. Super, super well said. And I think something that definitely needs to be heard, even by the younger, like people in my age category. Like I'm 30 and I know plenty of people around my age who are like, man, I think I need TRT. I'm like, dude,
no, you don't.
You don't. You haven't worked out in 7 years. You haven't run since high school. And, you gained 30 pounds. Like what did you think was going to happen? Like, this is the issue. It's not that you are low testosterone, but not because your body is broken, is because like, you're not doing the things that would support your body to be healthy.
Yeah. It's probably the worst thing that's happened to the category are all these fitness influencers going, look at me, I don't even need TRT. And I'm always like, kind of rolling my eyes, like going like, fuck, that's not what it's intended for. Like, it's not about being jacked or putting on 5 or 10 pounds of muscle. Like, let's put it this way. If someone goes on legitimate testosterone replacement and they gain 10, 15 pounds of muscle, not just weight, because you're going to get some fluid retention. They gain actual muscle. They transform their physique. Newsflash. They're taking more than prescribed. They're going above and beyond the label. I mean, in other words, they're abusing steroids. So it's such a disservice when people say, oh, I don't need it to look this way. It's like, well, ask your wife. That's where it's in your relationships and in your quality of life. Like, that's where it really, really shines, not in the gym.
Yeah. It's such a good point. I think even to like bring it down a little bit for some people is, I've had this question a number of times about creatine. Like, creatine is not anabolic. You don't just start taking creatine and all of a sudden you just start growing. Like, if that was the case, like we would all be, like it doesn't work like that. Like, creatine helps you because it allows you to train harder and train a little bit better. And that's what brings your gains in the gym, in a nutshell. And, TRT works the same. If you're actually at, replacement dosages, it's going to help your life improve and your mental health improve and like other things improve. And then that in turn helps you to consistently engage in behaviors that will lead to many things, one of which is better gains in the gym.
Absolutely. But all this fixation about, what my lab numbers say, I underwent this 3 months of this lifestyle intervention and I raised my testosterone by 80 points. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I've had draws on the same day, literally 30 minutes apart, same lab tech, I think they dropped it, so I had to do it again. My testosterone changed by 60 points in 30 minutes. Like there's so much margin of error. Like it's ridiculous. That's just not the metric to be focusing on. Like the lab numbers are good when you're in the super physiological and you're like, wow, my testosterone's at 5,000. Okay, that's way too fucking high. Like that's like, but within these normal ranges, like you want to be focusing on the symptoms. And that's, and again, I said this a million times, I know, but like that's when it shines, is when someone has symptomatic for low testosterone in their emotions and in their psychology, and just, if they're thinking they have ADHD, fuck, that's another sign right there. I would screen out, again, I would screen for low testosterone. I'd try that first. I mean, I'm 52 years old. The only drug I don't take blood pressure. I don't take prostate. I don't take ADHD. I took an ADHD drug for 3 days. I'm like, fuck this. This is not for me. Nothing. The only thing I take is testosterone. And I'm not saying I'm the pinnacle of health, but it's, it could be the answer to a lot of these other things that we're treating with other drugs that you maybe don't need. And your body produces testosterone. It doesn't produce Vyvanse or anything, or any SSRI. Like, you don't have a Wellbutrin deficiency.
Right. Focusing on the levels in the labs is almost similar to people who put too much stock in like the number on the scale. Like you're not walking around with your testosterone lab reading on your forehead for everyone to read. Like you only feel how you feel. And so if you feel good, like, or your body fat percentage or your weight, like no one knows that. You care about how you look and how you feel. So if your testosterone says 800 and you feel like crap, well, like how is that good? Or if it says 200 and you feel amazing, well, like maybe that's okay. Same if the scale is 205 and you don't like that, but you look amazing. Well, that's what you wanted, right?
I know, it's just like, if you're trying to spot an amateur in our space, if they're obsessed with their body fat percentage, that number, or they're obsessed with their serum TRT levels, if that's what they're anyway, it's not, that's anyway, like
we'll leave that one alone. We'll end it on some positivity. But I think you can, if you're a listener of this podcast, you are intelligent, and I think you can read between the lines there. Bryan, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about today? Anything else that you felt kind of that we left off the table here?
No, that's pretty much everything. I guess the biggest takeaway is it starts with strength. Just pursue strength. That is the most important quality, physical quality, that you need to hang on to as you get older. Is your muscle mass. So that is priority number one. Not saying everything else has to be eliminated, but that should be your focus. If you're over 50, it's all about strength. It's all about muscle. And if that's all you focused on, that's better than nothing.
Very good.
Okay. I might want to edit that last part out.
No. It's all perfect. That's why priorities have rankings. Priority doesn't mean ignore everything else. It's like, this is just this is number one, but there's also, 15 things to pay attention to. That's how it works. So
if you're over 50, just build muscle, fuck everything else, quit your job.
Maybe we'll take that part up, but we'll leave it. Bryan, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to connect and to learn from you and to hear your thoughts and everything that you've learned and everything that you've got going on. Is there anything that you have coming up that you want to let people know about?
No, not really. I got not absolutely nothing. I've reduced my life to I do a hell of a lot of coaching. That's all I do, professionally. And I mean, I got my family but work-wise, I'm just coaching full-time, and people want to get a hold of me. I'm on Instagram. Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I still have a website, and it's been around a long time.
This is how you know that you're one of the real ones. Like, there are not many people in the fitness industry who are 50 plus, and there are certainly not many people who are still like actively coaching clients as their thing, who are
That's depressing.
probably even no, it's not. It's real, but this is how you know you're real. Like this is it blows my mind because everyone's like, oh, as soon as I turned 35, now I'm a business coach. Like, give me a fucking
God.
because you couldn't coach clients, now you just decided to coach coaches how to coach other coaches, and then just a big circle jerk on the internet, not actually helping anyone. But that's me just getting fired up now. But that's you're one of the real ones, Bryan.
Well, thank you. I try to be. I know what I'm good at, and I stick with it. So.
Very good, sir. Well, thank you very much. Your Instagram handle's website, just bryankrahn.com. Is that what it is?
That's all it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. I'll put it in the show notes so everyone can find you if they haven't already. But thank you very much as always. Thank you guys all for listening. Make sure you're following Bryan. Make sure you tune into all the things that he's always putting out. Contact him for coaching. Ask questions if you have them. Like, share, subscribe to the episode. All those good things help spread the good message. We appreciate you both. We appreciate you all very, very much. Go outside. Be a good person. See you next time.